think we should, but let's do it.
Why should we not do this? Ahmad, what's the downside?
Are we doing the test?
No, this is for real. We don't do tests anymore.
Okay.
This is it. This is our intro. Instead of having cool intro music, it's us blabbering about Zoom.
We can't also afford cool intro music.
Right. 100% right. Okay. Welcome back, everyone, to episode number 9. Is that right? It's been so long.
Why not?
Yeah.
Episode number 9, Product Champs, which is now a relatively infrequent get-together of random dudes who like to talk about product, life, and careers. Funny enough, we haven't really talked about careers. Just remind me. Mostly we talk about product, which is fine. I'm DZ.
I'm Avi.
Why don't you go, Ahmad?
Every time, you guys. Every time.
There's an order.
Ahmad.
I'm Samir.
Okay. Terrific. Like 8 pods in, 9 pods in. We don't know how this works. So this week, what we thought we would talk about and dig into from a product point of view is the Metaverse. This is we're in the middle of November. This has been a hot topic since Facebook made some announcements a few weeks ago. And so we thought we'd get into, at minimum, what we think the Metaverse is or could be, what we think it's trying to solve, and in general, where we think it's going. All right, guys?
That's great, DZ.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that agenda so quickly? That's great.
I had 3 minutes between the time we decided to do this and the time we did this. Okay, let's just start at the top. Because I think, outside of, even to people who have watched the video and have surfed on YouTube and have talked about this, I still don't think this is like a precisely defined thing for anyone. Let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about what is it, or what is the current belief of it before we dig into the rest of it.
All right, Avi, why don't you start?
All right, I'll start. So I think what I'm wondering is, like, how is the metaverse different from the internet today? Right. And I think, as I did a little bit of research before this, it seems like the metaverse differs from the internet in the sense that there's a 3D world laid on top of the real world, right? So, or maybe there's a 3D world that exists and then there's a real world that exists. And how do you overlay those things on top of one another? And how do those things interact with one another? So I think that, for instance, the end state, or perhaps one end state of the metaverse, is that you wear a pair of AR glasses and there's an entire 3D world that exists on top of the regular world. That's both information, entertainment, interactions, etc. I think another version of the metaverse is you sit at home and you can access this world without having to leave your home. And I think in that version, I start to wonder, how is that different than what we have today, other than the visualization of the world? But I don't know. I'm still having a tough time answering this question of exactly what it is that we're referring to.
DZ, may I?
Go for it. Samir, let's hear it.
Okay, well, so I think the way I think about this is, I mean, in contrasting, Ahmad, are you laughing because you think I'm too old to define a new topic? Like, it's
that's
new,
precisely,
it's
that's precisely
okay, yeah, very good. I think
let's see what this geezer has to say about the metaverse.
Okay.
Back in my day, on my on my BlackBerry, we used to text each other memes in text form. All right, tell us, Samir.
Yeah, so look, I think the main difference with the internet of today is it's very easy in the internet today. Like the experience is very like, you are getting in and out of it very easily, and it's very transactional. Like, I go to a website, I load an app, I click some stuff, I buy some things, I'm entering it and leaving it, and it's sort of a transactional relationship I have.
Yeah.
Like right now we're using the internet to do this call, but I know where I am. My consciousness is split between my surroundings and the fact that we're doing the Zoom call. But the main difference to me, and I would say the defining characteristic, is that the metaverse is something that is submersive. Like, I get lost in it. I don't even realize that I'm in both worlds. I realize I'm in one. And that to me is the defining characteristic. It's sort of like I enter that experience And for all intents and purposes, although subconsciously my body has to react to the fact that I'm in both, done right, I shouldn't even feel it. I'm in another world. And so I think that's the difference with today and what we have.
By that
now and
definition,
then.
Samir,
Yeah.
aren't you in the metaverse right now?
Yeah.
No.
I think that's my point.
No, man. Like, look,
You are,
know
because
where I am.
your subconscious has to interact with us and understand, you know, what the Zoom call is. But you also have everything else going on behind you. So in a way, it is two worlds blending with one, right? Like if your kid came in.
Yeah, my point is, like, in the metaverse, I wouldn't even know about this one, the physical one that I'm in right now. I would just
you can't distinguish between the two.
I would say that I wouldn't even, for all intents and purposes, I would be so lost in the metaverse that I wouldn't even realize, unless someone like poked me physically, that like I'm actually in two worlds at the same time.
What Samir is describing is the Matrix.
Kind of.
I think that's what Zuck described too, by the way.
Wait, now you're smiling, Ahmad, because you think I'm that old that I remember the Matrix when it first came on. That's what I'm going to. So,
Ahmad, I'm impressed. I'm impressed you know the Matrix. I'm very, very happy.
I was just about to say I watched it for the first time in 2020.
DZ, what do you think?
I mean, I was trying to figure out from you guys' descriptions, like, what is the defining feature, right? Is it this immersiveness? Yeah, I think Avi used the word presence, right? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like what it's really going after, maybe those are defining features and maybe those are necessary. Like, let me paint the picture backwards. Instead of saying what are the qualities of the metaverse, I think about it from the perspective of what is the metaverse trying to solve? Yeah. Right. What is the metaverse trying to enable? And
by the way, I think there's a counterpoint to what you're saying, though. I think in the premise, because maybe it doesn't need to solve a problem, right? Like if you think about what a game is, a video game, it doesn't solve any problems, right? It's just fun.
That's entertainment. I mean, entertainment is a real problem. I would
argue that it solves a problem. Well, let DZ go and then we'll go.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
You rebuttal him and I'll rebuttal you.
That's right. We'll quadruple rebuttal. It's just rebuttals all the way down. So I think what I think the metaverse is trying to get at, what it was trying to help people with, is this ability to be together when they're apart. Right? Meaning, and that has two parts to it. That requires a synchronization, like we're actually doing this at the same time. You know, we're having this experience together. Right? We're not doing this asynchronously. We're like, you know, each of us have recorded this pod at different times where we stitch together. But the part that we're not doing right now is it really does not feel like we're together, right? It's very obvious to each of us. Yeah. That
I always feel like I'm together with you, DZ. I don't know. It really hurt.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate that, Samir. But I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like there's this sensation of like we're in the same room. It's pretty overtly obvious as we have this conversation that, you know, even though you guys are thousands of miles apart, and even though Zoom has made this feel less far apart, it is still pretty clear that we are apart, right? At no point are you like, oh, this is exactly the same as if you were sitting next to me, hang out in the room. So to me, the thing that the metaverse, or I would like the metaverse, maybe the better way to say that, Ahmad, it isn't so much what the metaverse does, is maybe the better way to frame this is like, what would I want the metaverse to do, right? And what I would want the metaverse to do is help me feel like we are together with whomever I want to interact with, when in fact we are actually wherever the hell we are in the world, right? And that manifests maybe maybe you need an immersive world to create that perception, and you need to create this very rich environment so we all want to hang out at the concert at the same time, right? Like this thing also falls apart if we don't get online at the same time and do this, right? If you get online at 5 p.m. and I get online at 8 p.m., like this doesn't happen either. Yeah, but that's my kind of gut.
I think that's interesting, and I think that, like, I think you're right, DZ, but I think there's also a part of what's being called the metaverse, which is, what if you are together, right? Like, what if you're not just trying to solve with a social aspect, but what if there's an extra layer that sits on top of reality, right? So it's not just about interacting and being social, but the fact that if you add more information into the world might become a more interesting place. Right. So like, if you're able to look out down like into a town and like see, every store that's available. Like a lot of the stuff that we do have already accessible today, but that it's more present, it's more easily accessible, it's more in the same place and digestible. That seems to be a part of this idea as well. And like one thing that's just making me realize as I say this out loud is that perhaps like we do have a very, very basic version of the metaverse already today, right? So like today, all of this information I'm talking about exists, right? But it's in this device on your phone. It's really, it's very inconvenient. Today we do have Zoom, right? Like we can get together and feel like more so than 10 or 15 years ago, we are in the same place, right? We can FaceTime each other, etc. And I think it's pushing all of those things that we have today further to the point where there's no compromise anymore, right? It doesn't feel like you're giving up something in order to get the information. You're giving up something in order to get on Zoom, that it's actually equal, if not better.
I think I really like the way you framed it, Avi. I think that probably is, to me, seems like a much clearer view of the way the metaverse could play out versus, I think we might be having these assumptions because Facebook, the Facebook announcement. So we're like, okay, how does a social media company that owns these VR glasses, what do they mean by it? As opposed to ignoring them as if it's as if they had never made an announcement. What would the metaverse have meant?
Yeah. I always had this really interesting idea when I was at Disney of, I don't know, when you guys went to the movies as kids, did you ever leave the movie feeling like you were the action hero or you were the character? Like I remember like going to like a Superman movie and being like, I'm Superman, right? Like I'm in, like I can fly. I'm like
Ahmad still thinks he's Superman.
Exactly. So I mean, he's living this reality, but like, imagine a storytelling version of Metaverse, right? Where like you actually do leave a movie and for the rest of the day, their entire world, like you can be Superman, right? Like there's a story that unfolds around you with the plot and characters and like you can go on adventures and like little subplots. Like that's not got nothing to do with the social element of the metaverse, right? Now it's just like the story is overlaid onto the world and you can live the story in a way where you couldn't today, right? Like you get maybe the same experience playing a game, but it's very like disconnected experience from the actual physical universe.
Okay. I'll tell you the problem I think this solves.
Oh, hold on. We haven't heard from Ahmad.
Oh, Ahmad, do your thing because you're saying there's no problem.
Well, no, I didn't say there's no problem. I just thought we were in the stage where we were just describing what the metaverse is. We haven't even proposed. What's the question of the day? Samir, you wanted to ask the question, right? What's the question?
Well, I was trying. The prompt was, what is it, right? Because it's not precisely defined, and I was having trouble even articulating what it is without. The only way I can articulate what it is as a solution to a problem I have. I don't know how to articulate a different way at this point, basically. But Ahmad, how would you describe the metaverse? What is the metaverse?
Well, the way I would describe it is it's probably a distraction from Facebook PR. That's the way I'd probably describe it.
No, I mean maybe to a certain extent, like some.
You guys didn't even mention that at all. It's like, come on, this is what it really is.
Fine.
Keep going.
Did you see DZ's disappointing nod, by the way? He gave you a little bit like, I can't believe you said that.
For what it's worth, I like the way Avi described it a lot. That's where I was going to go. It's for me, my personal perspective is I think it's been positioned as us going deeper into the digital world, whereas my personal view of it is the digital world coming more to us, and in ways that I think Avi was describing.
I like DZ. I want to be able to answer DZ's question though. Like, I think.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know. Like, I think there it is. So, like, I think it could solve some sort of problem. And I wonder if the problem is actually nagging enough.
Dude, let me tell you the problem this solves. I agree. Like, it solves the problem. You hate your life.
As Samir does from time to time.
Okay, right. No, but here's the deal. It solves escape. Like that's what it's doing. If you think about Ahmad, you mentioned video games. Video games, apart from the entertainment, apart from the social, apart from all that stuff, when you're playing a game, you feel lost in another world. You lose your sense of space and time. You feel like you're immersed. this is the ultimate escape. Like from Facebook's point of view or anyone's point of view, if you're in another world and you don't think about where you are, because that's exactly where you want to be, and you spend like the economy, the incentives, the identity is all in another space, and you don't like who you are in this world, like plug into the metaverse and be who you want. You don't have friends here, go have friends in the metaverse, right? Like you don't like your job, get a job in the metaverse. Like my point is, you can be who you want, when you want, where you want in the metaverse.
Can I counter? TZ, do I have your
This
approval?
is an uncounterable,
Okay.
uncounterable reality of.
Okay, keep going. I'm on.
Okay. First of all, I think you know, you're I think saying all video games is escape from reality. Like that's
I didn't
the core
say
problem.
all it was.
I think there are two fundamental things. I think people play video games because they think it's fun, right? Like same way they do board games, same reasons that they do reading. It's like, it doesn't need to solve a core problem, right? Like I am bored and I want to solve this problem, but there's also like, I'm just going to do this because it's fun. And maybe I'm acceptable with boredom.
Right.
And then there's a whole set of use cases where like, I'm unhappy with my life. I'm going to put it all into
just to be clear, because I don't want to get all these comments about how I'm saying video games are an escape. What I said was, apart from being fun and the social aspects, when you are playing a video game, you get lost in another world, and that is the escape that the metaverse can just amplify. That's what I'm trying to say.
Got it. I think it's very clear though. No one's arguing that the metaverse and gaming are not super intertwined, right? Like that's clear. The question is the metaverse going to be applicable anywhere else besides gaming? And I think social media is a decent one because that's to your point, Samir, that's a place where people go to escape. But I would argue that I don't think the metaverse will ever be more than anything beyond gaming. And I'll explain why.
Oh, wow. Go on.
It's interesting. I'm glad we're having this conversation. We actually have very different points of view. Actually, this is an area where we're not actually very much on the same page. Across the four of us, by the way. Keep going. I'm on.
So I think I may have already texted this a bit. So you guys got a slight preview, but I think someone said to me, and I thought it was true, when the iPhone came out, it was this like revolutionary thing. Like everyone was picking up iPhones. Developers were moving all the smartest people were moving towards mobile to like build on mobile. And like mobile is a big wave. And Oculus Rift has been around for like a really long time. And like, how many people do you know that have an Oculus Rift that have only used it once or twice? And like, how many of them are knocking down your door being like, you need to have this thing. Whereas like with the iPhone, I remember people like, you need to play with this thing.
Wait, but there's an easy counter. Sorry to interrupt. But like the easy counter to what you're saying, Ahmad, is like iPhone wasn't the first touch enabled flat screen, small format device, right? It was like the 9th, right? Like it got it right, in a way that the other ones didn't for some reason.
You're absolutely so. Yes, that's true. Which brings me to my next point, which is, I think the what's the right way of saying this? If there is going to be a player that does this right, it probably won't be Facebook. So I'm saying like maybe I might be wrong.
Yeah, I agree.
Right, like I might be wrong. And maybe metaverse does become more of a thing, but I don't think Facebook is the player to do it. And one of the reasons why I think that is because I think Snapchat is arguably the leader in this space, because they found ways to actually apply use cases to AR VR technology that are not gaming, even with them, like, the use cases have kind of plummeted based on like putting a cool panda on my face and sending it to Samir.
Oh, so before Samir gets up in a tizzy, which I can see he is
getting tizzy, really riled up.
Look, I think it's interesting that you know, half of our conversation is really revolved around the technology itself, you know, AR, VR, and immersive, you know, blah blah, and you know, we haven't really dug deep into the concept. And let me riff on something Avi was saying earlier about the real world, digital world, right? You know, one again, this is just I'm not making this assertion that this was what the metaverse is, but I'm making the assertion that this is what the intention could be. You know, one riff on Avi's thought process is that the metaverse is simply a digitization of all physical things. And the result and consequence of doing that, how you interact with it, who the hell knows, right? I'm not saying how you're going to use these things, but the consequence of that is I now no longer need to be next to the object to interact with the object, right? So, you know, Ahmad, you and I can, I mean, you know, we can talk to each other, but like in the sense of really having a real physical like interaction, unless I'm, you know, within 1 meter of me, I'm not interacting with that stuff at all, right? The only stuff I can interact with is in 1 meter of me today.
I would just add on, I agree with you, DT. I just add on one thing, which is if you are next to the object, you get more from the object than you did before.
Sure. Right?
That's
like,
one benefit.
In other words, so one benefit is you get more stuff, but the real benefit is I can interact with it when I want. I mean, one of the interesting things, Ahmad, about what you were saying about the iPhone, and that really has become true over the last 10 years, is it used to be that you would use the internet, you know, at your desk, right? You'd use in the morning, in the evening, whatever, you know, you know, depending on what you're doing, you would have, you use the internet. I mean, you guys don't understand this at all. I'm not even sure why I'm explaining this to you, but it used to be you had to log into the box.
I remember
sitting on your home, and you had and you'd only use it a couple times a day, right? Once or twice a day, generally speaking. And what the iPhone did was now I can be internet connected all day. And so the number of times I interact with the internet went from twice a day to 20 times a day. Right. And then you can make a similar argument
20
here.
is still amateur, you guys.
But also you could take the internet with you.
You take the internet with you, right? So now I have infinite access to this thing I wanted to do twice a day. But like, couldn't you say the same thing about the metaverse if this is the direction it goes? Like all this stuff in the world, it used to be, or not it used to be, it is today that I can interact with anything within 10 meters of me, maybe 100 meters if I'm being ambitious. Okay, 100 meters of me, I can interact with that stuff. Anything outside 100 meters, I didn't even think about interacting with, right? Because there's no possibilities for me to interact with it. But in the metaverse, you can, or using metaverse ways you could.
Go ahead, Avi.
I'll just say this quickly. Like, I think yes, DZ, but I think all the properties that all of you have mentioned are things that exist in the internet today, right? Like DZ, I would argue that like what you're saying about touching things that are not next to you, you can say is true of Amazon, right? You can say like, I buy things that are not next to me and they show up in my house days later.
I can't believe the kids are saying it's less than what the old guys are saying it is. What is wrong with you? Look, listen, guys.
This is not a real trend. It's not a real trend.
No, it is a real trend.
Hang on.
We're just advancing it.
I don't think, by the way, I don't care if it's Facebook that does it or not. I don't care if it's AR, VR. I don't care. All I know is that the reality is, and this is where if we had listened to DZ and done some homework, then we would have had more facts, but whatever.
When has this ever happened, Samir?
Yeah, right. What I'm saying is that, like, look, I don't think you guys, like, I'm going to say this in as non-data driven way as possible, but I think it's real. There are a lot of people in the world who don't have the privileges and opportunities we have.
Don't have access to stuff that we have, right?
Yeah. Another way of saying is life is hard and not that good. The metaverse is an opportunity for them when it's ready to be a world where they don't have the same restrictions and limitations that they do in the real world. You could be who you want, where you want, for how long you want in that world. And I expect that there will be armies of people, so to speak, plugged in. Of course, they have to get out to do their whatever daily stuff. But the point is plugged in, and that is their main source of fulfillment, who they are in the metaverse and who they become. And that's it. It is the easiest form of a redo for many people in the world.
But okay, repeat that same sentence, but substitute Reddit, Facebook, YouTube, right? You can be
Yeah.
a kid in the world who does not have access to the things that we have today.
Or
who
4chan.
Gets
Or
on
8chan.
Well, I mean, that's
Okay,
you
you
down,
text
takes them down a different path.
interface.
I mean, all I'm saying is like the sentence you just said is absolutely true, but it's actually true today, right?
Yes,
like,
but my Avi, 100%, I agree with you. It's true today. As in, people are using those tools or those products to fill that same void or that same need, right?
Yes.
I completely agree with you. My point is when you bring in the immersiveness so that your sight, consciousness, whatever, is plugged into the other one, and it's not just type, click, whatever, and it's immersive, your reason to use it and the time you will spend go up 100x versus what you're doing now.
I don't disagree with you. I agree with you there. I'm 100% aligned.
Yeah, and I agree with you. People have shadow Reddit accounts that pose to do whatever. Not me, of course. But I think
if we ever discover that,
I know it'd be so good.
That's a pod.
There's all sorts of tools people are using as escapes. The reality is they're not that good escapes versus what could be with an immersive world. And just like when things went from a flip phone to a touch screen, although probably magnified a lot more, the utility you get out of it with its new capabilities, whatever they are, is going to be so much more that your experience will be more and you'll spend more time on it. So that's the problem it's solving. That's where I think we're going.
Can I ask a question that maybe drills into what you're saying, Samir? Because I think maybe this is where by the way, I think we're all defining the metaverse a bit different, which I'm glad we asked that in the beginning, because I think I'm starting to see how Samir is defining it. What does going from internet everywhere in your pocket on a phone and or laptop to metaverse actually achieve in terms of like, flip phone to like touchscreen? It's like more visibility, more accessible, information is much more digestible and readable. Are you saying that in like a metaverse context, it's the same thing? Or are you saying it's like slightly different?
Yeah, I'm saying that, like, I don't, okay. So here's two stories that one of which many will relate to and one of which will make me look stupid. When you watch TV, you mentioned this when you go to the movies, right? But you sort of mentioned like after. I'm talking like between. Sometimes like I'll catch myself thinking like I have a regular size TV, something big or whatever. But when I'm watching a movie, I don't even see the borders of the TV. Like, and then sometimes I'll catch myself like, oh, at what point did because I started in my living room sitting down looking at the TV, and at some point I forgot that I was looking at the TV and was just watching the movie. Does that happen to you guys?
Yes. I mean, not often, but yeah, sometimes. Okay,
well, that happens to me a lot. Right? I'm just like, I don't even realize that I'm not watching the frame. That, but in all dimensions, not just sort of sight. My claim is that done properly, or as DZ says, and we haven't said it for a while, in the fullness of time, done right, you won't even know that you're in it, is the point I'm trying to get to.
That is the literal matrix, right? That end state is the literal definition of the matrix, right?
Call me old, but I think that's where we're going. And so that's my like vision statement of where this is. Like, you don't even know you're in it. Here's the story that makes me look stupid. So and I agree about the Oculuses of now. First of all, I don't have one. Secondly, with the few times I've tried one is with a friend, and they've also told me that they used it a couple of times and like they haven't used it, whatever. But one of my coworkers had it in the airport when we were traveling. So we were in the airport lounge, and it was one of those ones that you didn't need the computer, like you just put it on. And so I started playing this game where I think I was like slaying like zombies or whatever. My buddy started taking a video of me wearing this thing. Turns out I was acting like a complete goofball, like slaying dragons with my thing in the airport lounge. I was having a great time. I looked like an idiot, but I was like, it was an immersive experience to the point where like I was really enjoying it. It was disconnected from the reality of how I would behave were I not in that experience. And And that's just the beginning. Like that's like the old tech, the old whatever, like one game, like whatever. Bring in real people, bring in better visualization, bring in more use cases, bring in no reason to leave. Like that's a new world. That's where I think we're heading. Yes, the Matrix.
So like, I agree to a point, and then there's one part that makes me disagree, right? So let's assume that we get to that end state where you can literally sit down at your desk and enter the Matrix, right? I've begun to wonder if humans are just too social of creatures for that. And like, I don't know, like I'm of two minds, right? I think that you see people looking down at their phones all day and you can say, no, like we are perfectly primed for this. This would just be more of the hits we get, those like social hits from like being on like Instagram, things like that. But the times that I've used VR, the downside to it is that you're so cut off from the world, right? It's very different than staring into your phone. That like the world you would have to create in this Matrix has to be really compelling.
Or filled with things and people.
Or
like
filled with
Facebook.
things
Or filled with things and people.
And then maybe that's why Facebook is the perfect company to do this. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you guys something. When you guys hear an argument against remote work, what is usually the number one argument?
Collaboration is better in person.
Yes.
There is just something different about being in person.
That's right. Yes.
Doesn't that essentially trump the whole concept though of like?
No, it doesn't. Because Ahmad, it says that in today's technology, that's absolutely true.
Yes.
But I think what I'm saying is like, I don't know. I don't think like technology could ever get to a point. I mean, I guess this is where you and I disagree because you think that technology will get to a point where like I won't be able to tell the difference between.
I still make web pages in PHP. Okay, so like it's not like I'm some cutting edge computer graphics artist here.
So I think you guys are finally getting to the interesting debate. I was waiting for a long time.
Oh, Jedi Master DZ was waiting.
Not Jedi Master. Look. Yeah. I actually here's where I think we agree and I think we don't agree. I think we all agree because the use cases are really quite vast. Of like, if what Samir says did exist, would it be amazing? It would be amazing. It would be amazing. I'm just gonna put it out there, right? Imagine you could put this thing on, you feel like you're Superman and literally flying. Who in the right mind is not doing this thing? Think about the utility of this thing. I won't go into the details here, but you understand the point. Okay, so like and to your point, Avi, like. This world cannot be a sterile world of like, boxes and shapes and, doors and trees, right? This world happens to be kind of a supercharged version of reality, right? It's filled with people talking to you and people you can engage with. You can go on adventures together, right? Like, think about all the stuff we do today that if you enabled it with this would be 10x better. All these games would instantly better. Movies, instantly better, right? They're just like all the stuff today that you're like, this is pretty good, but now make it super immersive and you can't tell the difference between sitting in a chair and being the protagonist. I don't think it's very hard to argue this is not a good thing, right?
I have some philosophical disagreements, but we'll hold them.
Okay. And by the way, it also it's also like justifiable from the longer arc of humanity, right? Like we always want the thing that we can't get. We always want more access to more stuff, right? Like this is just another step in that direction, right? I think the part where we, maybe this is the really interesting conversation to have is that end state is really far away, in my opinion. It's not like 2, 3 year, 4, 5 year far away, like more than that. Samir, do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree with that. I agree with that.
I think my
wait, you think it's 2, 3, 4, 5 years away?
No, I don't think it's.
Okay.
Hang on, but I do think that in 5 years, a non-trivial amount of people will be spending a majority of their time plugged into some alternative. Like
so that's an interesting debate we should definitely have, right? So my question is like
5 years, Ahmad. 5 years. Okay.
My question is like the end stage. The end state, you plug into the Matrix, you live your life. It's amazing. You have access to whatever you want all the time. We're all going to be on this thing. What are the stepping stones? Because you got to build a crap ton of technology. This technology is really non-trivial to build. You have to have deep pockets. Actually, Ahmad, this might be why Facebook has to do it, right? Because like who can spend $5 billion a year on this for 10 years, right? But like, how do you step your way into this thing, which is mad? Like, think about it this way. We've been trying to do self-driving cars for for the last 20 years, and self-driving cars is way easier.
No, it's not. No,
yes, it is.
No,
It's
self-driving
way
cars
easier.
are no.
Way easier.
Way easier.
Low
I don't think
yours are right.
latency, imperceptible difference
Are
between
you
what is
kidding me?
physical reality.
Self-driving cars have to deal with real physics in the real world.
I'd
Like in
also
the metaverse, you can do whatever you want. Like,
But
what?
you need something that plugs into your brain, and your
No,
brain
you
doesn't know the
don't need
difference.
that.
No. It needs something that tricks you into convincing you that everything is real, which is
That's
I'd
right.
say is much harder.
No.
Yes.
Oh.
You have this real
Yes.
uncanny valley, right? Like these goggles, just like you can make them, you can put more pixels, but
Well,
you
of
can't make them
course
more
things will
immersive.
get better over time. Like, of course they'll get better over time. I'm not saying like.
I'd argue that the easiest path of engineering development here is to figure out how to convince Samir, or how to get Samir's brain into an AI, like a SimCity AI, and convince you, like basically turn you into a simulation and then put you into a simulated world. That's the easiest
What?
path of development.
You want to
That's my-
virtualize Samir's
What,
brain?
dude? Okay, maybe
Yes.
I'm the only person when I watch TV, I get lost in it and think that like
You're right. I think you're right, Samir. Like I think you guys are like VR goggles are, I'd say, like Oculus, I'd say about 70% of the way there to what Samir is talking about. Like I don't think you're actually. I think there are a couple of actual problems that you have to solve. Like one of them is battery life. Like just very
Okay,
tangible.
that's solvable. I mean, this is so far
Yeah,
so good.
solvable.
These are
That's right.
problems.
Right. You have to
And
you
your
have to have a
friends.
way to
you want your friends there.
you have to, but like let's just solve the hardware problems first. Like the friends, like all of that stuff's actually easy. Like the
Yeah,
hardware
there's-
problems are actually difficult.
There's
And
a
like
physics problem. You know what I mean? Like
What do you
you're
mean a
walking
physics
around.
Not that
You're
much.
walking-
No.
Not
Okay, so no, but the
self-driving
physics
cars,
problem-
Ahmad.
the physics problem is just how do you achieve locomotion in VR, right? So like the one way is you have to actually walk. Two is like you
You have to
like
get in
people have-
cars. You have to fly. How are you going to do all this stuff without knowing that it's not reality?
What are you guys talking about?
No,
Dude,
you don't have to do all of this.
I thought what? I thought okay.
Okay,
I
are you
thought-
are you basically making the argument that like things you see can give you the perception of feeling? Like just I don't have to literally walk. To
Yeah,
feel like I'm
Yes,
walking.
that's true of VR.
Of
That's
today.
the argument
course.
you're making.
That's true. That's
Yes.
true of a lot of things today.
No,
But
But
what
I
you're-
mean,
would that get you far enough?
dude,
that
if
it-
I show you a video of falling on the roller coaster, like
Yeah, it does feel-
you're gonna
it
get
does
a little
feel
bit of
that
a
way. That's
feeling
right.
there.
I'll tell you that the biggest problem with VR today is actually that it's hard to put your face into VR, right? Like one of the problems with VR today is that like
Yeah.
if you want to have the social experience, the reason it looks ridiculous is that you have to have avatars. There's no way to put you into VR. And if you solve that problem, you've actually solved a lot of this.
Ahmad, I can't believe it. Dude, you know what it is,
So
DZ? I just
far.
realized one thing. These young kids have such a good life already. They're like, why would I want to leave this amazing life that I'm leading right now? And those old guys are like, get me out of here. I need an escape.
Yeah, look, I think we fundamentally disagree on this one.
I
And
can't believe it.
But Ahmad, you really think you need like Matrix level like
I
No,
think
you don't.
I mean, I think in order, because all right, so let me take a step back.
Yeah.
I think what we're saying is where, to quote Samir exactly, what does the technology have to get to such that people are spending more time in that than in the real world? Right. That was the way it was
Yeah.
prompted.
That's right.
yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we are far away
Okay.
from
well,
the technology being that
but-
far.
Can we break down one example? Can we break down the Zoom?
Yeah.
What
Let's
would
use
it-
work
what would
as
it
a great
take-
example.
What would it take for us to do this in the metaverse, so to speak, versus on Zoom?
Not in my opinion, not very much. Right? Because think about this is the easiest interaction to solve, right?
Okay,
You're not
hopefully
moving
my
around.
wife doesn't see this because then I'll get in trouble.
Are
But
you showing us some
Porn?
naughty pictures?
What are you
Like,
showing
what's
us?
going on
no,
here?
I'm
Come on.
showing you my screen time from my iPhone. My
Okay.
point is, I already spent 5 hours a day on average on this, okay? Which was
Sure.
down 20%
Low.
from the week before. Yeah. My point, and it's me, old guy with 2 kids. Like, I don't have time to live in the. My point is 5 hours already on my phone. Like, and this thing is in my hand, and it's nothing compared to like an immersive experience. I don't think we have to go too far to go from 5 to 12. Like, I don't think so at all.
I think what you guys are saying is with work specifically, right? Is like, does going from 2D to 3D, right? What does it take? What technology does it require in order for people to be like 3D virtually better than 2D virtually?
So I'll give you
Right?
a good example. Yes, you're right, exactly. But also like there's something to be said with the interaction of 3D and the real world. Actually,
that part of the argument, I'm still not like.
Yeah, you lose me there.
Okay, let me make the example more.
So different.
Let me make the example more. I can make the example more concrete, right? And I think this actually takes it in a really cool direction, which is, one of the things I got to play around with at Disney was we got Microsoft HoloLenses, okay, and that like some of the most sophisticated AR technology there's out there, because what it does is it actually senses surfaces in the real world. So it goes like, you look at a wall and it's like, there's a wall there. I recognize wall, and I can place things onto the wall. Or like there's a desk, and in real time, I can place a virtual object onto the desk. Okay, so in a work context, this is really interesting because Microsoft also developed all of their work, their full work suite, so that you could put it into the HoloLens. So you could have Outlook, you could have Word, you could have Excel.
If there's one thing I don't want in the metaverse,
no,
it's
totally.
Outlook and email.
It's terrible. Like, it's terrible. But like, I was able to basically put in my office, my email on one wall. I was able to put my calendar in the hallway outside. I was able to put a Word document that I was working on.
I see. So the lens would show you this when you walk by that wall.
It was walking, and then it would stay there, right? So like, if I wanted to go back to my email, I'd have to walk back to my office. That was
that's clever.
Space.
I like that.
I'd have to, and like, this is just one way that I ended up using it, right? And there's this interesting interaction between, like I can put my digital thing in a physical space, and like that somehow affected my productivity, right? It was much more akin to the way I worked in the real world, but it enhanced my capabilities, right? All of a sudden, I had this massive calendar on my wall that simply wasn't there, but it was super helpful for organization.
So this I can get behind, is that the metaverse makes you more productive by putting things in it that are like, an argument like we as humans were genetically made to interact in a three-dimensional space, not in a two-dimensional space. And by taking things that we do in a two-dimensional space, putting them in a three-dimensional space, we become more productive.
Yes.
That argument I can get I can get behind. And I could see how if you take all of work, that maybe, a big portion of things then happen there. I think, by the way, have you guys ever heard of a startup called Rec Room?
No.
Okay. So maybe, if someone on the call, I don't want to call them out by name, wanted to do some research ahead of this, they would, in theory, go check out that startup. But go check out Rec Room. They do exactly what Avi is proposing. It's an ex-Microsoft HoloLens team. They do. There's a famous story about them doing all their pitch decks inside. They only pitch to VCs that will actually get into the virtual space with them. But one of the things that I personally found about that is I know a lot of people who have used it. Again, this goes back to the sort of Oculus thing. It's like, I know a lot of people who have used it, and maybe I'm wrong, and the technology is just not to the point where it's like, you have to see this, but it never gets past like, oh, this is cool and interesting. And I don't see a process where like, your calendar, for example, is a much, like, I think for people who are working on like a construction line, right? Like there's like these, or like putting things together, like putting pieces or parts together. I think there's an argument to be made there. But I think like for most of us who are like actually building in two-dimensional context. Go ahead.
No, okay, look, I am usually a pessimist. I'm a realist.
No, you're like often a pessimist. Yes.
Okay.
Usually. Yes.
I'm usually a realist. I used to think there's no point innovating. Actually, we talked about this in episode 1. A lot of things that like a lot of people are just spending time on problems that don't need to get solved. I actually think a lot of problems don't need to be solved. This is one where I not only do I feel like needs to be solved, I am probably the most bullish from all of you on like where this can. I don't think it's necessarily all good. Oh, look, I just pushed my chair back in excitement and broke one of my hard drives, I think. I don't just think this is like needs to be solved. I think it's going to be incredibly impactful. I think the incentives, like for example, in our Bitcoin episode, we talked about like virtual and owning virtual, places or property, whatever.
Yeah.
People are going to.
There's
an entire economy of like, what I dress, what I drive, what I buy,
store value is actually solved by this in some clever ways.
Right? Like if I'm calling you to hang out with me in the metaverse, am I going to take you to like this pixelated room, or am I going to take you to the, whatever nice mansion, DZ's house, basically, right? In the metaverse. And that's, I think, one form of economy, the incentives, like who I hang out with, like my family is my family. I love my family. I'm not switching my family. But the point is, if I wanted to, I'm not. I could.
Samir, if your mom's listening to this and she's totally piecing together,
hi,
like,
mom, right,
this guy wants to switch me out to a different person.
Yeah.
No. But the point is, like, your social structure can be swapped out to whatever. Like a colony of people who believe a certain thing can just hang out all the time. And as I think Avi and DZ said, like in a way that feels closer than ever.
Yeah.
Right. And I think if you think
I'm pretty bullish too. I mean, just for the record, like I take a very different argument, and let's kind of wrap up, because I think we all agree that like we ramble unnecessarily. But like my slight different take on your argument, Samir, is, and this goes back to what something Ahmad said earlier, which is, what is the benefit of being able to access anything in the world versus only access those things within 100 meters of me, right? And I think
a three-dimensional setting.
And
I think that's important, right? Because I think you can have
like,
access to things in a two-dimensional setting.
Right, exactly. Access to my hands, hands, and be really kind of interact with it, right? In the same way, like I can pick up this mug and really take a sip.
Yeah.
Like, in the virtual world, I can watch somebody drink a glass of water, but that's not the same thing. So, like, if you just think about from that unlocking point of view, what are those things I would want to have? And we do need to make this leap of faith that whatever we do invent ends up making my digital interaction, let's call it 80% as good as a physical in real world interaction, right? If it's like 20% as good, I'll just get a picture, like no different, right? Or watch a video. But if it's at 80%, 70%, so if the metaverse can enable me to access anything in the world, and the interaction I have with it is at 70% as good as if I were physically there, that's unbelievable.
Right.
That's insanity,
plus
right?
100. Listen, DZ,
right?
Completely agree with you. And I would have
the question is, how do you get that 70%, right? What's the 70%?
Here's the thing. So there's one nuance. I would say I agree with what you're saying, and there's one nuance I will add in there to clarify, which is we have been talking about things like you said, the cup of water, or like whatever, like things that we have around us right now.
You're saying I can access things I've never had before too.
Yes.
Right.
That's the
magic. Right?
That's the magic, right?
Yeah.
Like not all of us are going to be, as baller as Ahmad and like, have yachts one day.
Totally. That's
but
right.
in the metaverse,
I could, at least for an hour.
My brain might be tricked to actually, have one or whatever. So the point is, I think it's about access, but it's also about access in a way that like you don't have you are opportunity or resource constrained in the current world, and you won't be. It doesn't mean like everything is free and you just like whatever, but the point is the economy and the incentives allow you to access things in an alternative reality that you don't today. And you see very primitive forms of this, but people buy like stuff for games and their characters in games today, but like times 1,000.
Or are you even arguably most of the creator stuff we see today, right, is people who want to live your life, right? And they're kind of living sort of by watching you live your own life, but they're not really experiencing your life with you, right? They're getting a 10% version. If you could give them the 70% version,
I could be as cool as Ahmad in the metaverse. Is the point
temporarily?
That made us think it's too far. There's limits to technology. I agree. Maybe that's not possible. Yeah.
Look, I hope I'm wrong on this, but I don't think I am. I think the metaverse stops at movies and entertainment, basically just all entertainment. I think in the metaverse, I think that's where the metaverse stops, personally. And maybe some exceptions to work where like, it's easier to build things in a digital 3D rendering than in a digital or in like a digital 2D form. And I do agree that it does fit crypto very well. But beyond that, I don't know. I hope I'm wrong.
I think I come out in between all of you guys, which is I think Ahmad set a good bar, right? Which is I think the convenience of 2D interaction is really hard to overcome. And I think if you do, it has to be convenient, entertaining, and it has to have utility, right? And if you can achieve all of those with like this, like by pushing what I think is already there today, right? So this is just a new way to interact with what we have today. And you can do all of those things. I think Samir's right? I think like there's no stopping it. but I think achieving that is much harder than any of us think.
Oh, 100%. By the way,
it's definitely not 5 years away, right?
No,
It's definitely not 5 years away. It's definitely not there.
But here's the thing.
It's not 5 years away.
Here's a really interesting thing, right? It's going to take an absurd amount of money and capital. Like, aren't we actually all better off that Facebook is willing to spend $5 billion a year for the next 10 years?
Yes.
But who else in their right mind is going to spend that much money to chase
the thing is,
Google,
Google and Facebook, right? Like but
Yeah.
you need someone to sacrifice that much upfront capital to go after something this hard. And they still might lose, Ahmad, to your point. Like, even after all that capital is invested, this still may not be enough.
But I think the hardware problems are defined here, right? Like, I think you actually need somebody to make the investment and people to go out and try to solve these problems. But I don't think the problems are unknown. So I think it's actually, there's a starting point. And I think if Facebook sustains 10 years worth of investment, they might actually get there.
Oh,
I don't know. Code Fusion is a known problem too, right? Like,
Cold Fusion doesn't have an
like,
ad economy behind it, so there's incentives not to
Not
solve
yet.
it.
infinite free energy doesn't have the right monetary incentive.
Yeah, exactly.
Ahmad is like reeling. He's like, I can't believe you guys are idiots.
Blur me out of the episode.
Yeah, just cut me out of this one, DZ. I don't know what to do with this one.
All right, guys, good. I'm glad we came to no conclusions, which is kind of the point. Let's do some carve outs. Let's wrap up. Ahmad, go first.
Yeah,
oh, Avi, go first. Avi, go first.
Oh God. Okay, now I volunteered myself. All right, I live in Atlanta now, so it's been really interesting. Starting life in a new city, a city where I grew up. So it's been really interesting coming back. And just, it's made me think a lot about like how important location or unimportant location is.
Ooh, very metaverse relevant.
Yeah, very, very metaverse friendly. But like, I don't know. So it's made a big difference that we're living somewhere different. But at the same time, like, the core things in my life, my family, like the fact that it's easy to communicate with friends wherever, like very little has changed. But overall, it's been nice. Like, we're living in a house now, whereas we're living in an apartment before. We have a little more space. There's a little more convenience here. We live right by Costco, so I've been going to Costco a lot. So yeah, I don't know.
Are you Mr. Atlanta? Like, you know how there's all these like ballers that moved to Miami and they're like basically, are you that for Atlanta now?
No,
like,
I wish Google is not paying me enough. We got to change.
This is going on YouTube.
That's okay.
On a platform
it's a very subtle jab.
Yeah.
We'll tag your manager down in the comments below.
Yeah.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Right, we would never
Just
say
tag
that.
people operations. Yeah.
I mean, is there like the donate button? Like, people can donate to the thing. Is that a thing?
We could start
An Atlanta fund for you?
an Atlanta, exactly, an Atlanta fund for me, but like, not that we wouldn't want people to do anything like that.
No.
And there are also other things we wouldn't want them to do.
Exactly. Right. We definitely don't want them to like subscribe.
No. Or comment.
Or comment. Or yeah.
Or share.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
If we were to get over 1,000 subscribers over the next couple of weeks,
which is very unlikely, but okay.
Hey, Ahmad, do you think DZ would attend MIT in the metaverse?
Oh God, I would. I would. 100%.
At the very least, he would project himself in the metaverse as if he had gone to the MIT, which is all that matters.
Right. Exactly.
No, you got to make NFTs out of the T-shirt or something, right? You got to like preserve the.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, Ahmad.
next carve out.
I guess for me, two things that are top of mind. One is I think we talked about this over text, but I've become a lot more of a crypto bull and blockchain bull, NFT bull, just straight up over the last couple of months. And generally, I just keep thinking it's like such a cool space. And you can be bull or bear. And I think just look at the simple fact that all of the smartest people in the world are there building shit, and I think it just seems like a very hot, cool space that I feel like it's exciting to like just read something new every day of like what all the innovations are that are going on. The second thing is I'm thinking I need to send Samir a book. Samir, have you ever read Ready Player One?
No, I haven't even watched the movie, but
it's a great read.
Don't watch the movie.
Don't watch the movie.
Yeah,
Don't watch
really
the
good
movie.
read.
I will.
I can't read.
Or there's a great
Okay.
audiobook. There's a great audiobook.
I could do
That'll be
audiobook.
You want to do an audiobook?
Yeah. Okay.
I was gonna send you my copy since you sent me a copy of a book, but if you're a listen type of situation, I can also send it to you in the metaverse in like 2080.
Perfect,
right? That's me.
Cool. DZ, you want to go? You want me to go? What do you want to do?
You go first.
Okay, I have two short ones today. The first one is I can't believe 2021 is almost over.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
What? Right? Because I remember thinking 2020 was like a write-off in so many ways. 2021 will be over this. In many ways, we are have moved on so much. But in the day-to-day hustle, it's almost done. Mm-hmm. And so that is a big, I didn't realize it until I stopped and thought, geez, it's like November something, November 12th today. But that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. So time flies. And the other one was I never watched Star Wars until last week.
Wow.
I've watched it as in I've been around people who are watching it. I think I even went to the theater once and did not pay attention. I used to think it was silly. Never really found the appeal. And then my 5-year-old son comes home from school and says his friend watched Star Wars and they were talking about it. And I was like, okay, great. He wanted to watch it. I sat down beside him and I'm like, yeah, it's still whatever, fantasy, whatever, but there's a story behind it. I didn't realize. And I think this is judge a book by its cover type thing or probably the anti of that or whatever. I just didn't realize for so many years, I was like, I'm not the type of person that watches Star Wars. That's way too nerdy. But I watched the first two and they were pretty good.
Yeah, it's a pretty great story. It's pretty universal. Good. Yeah.
Which first two did you watch, Samir?
The first one and the second one. I watched them I'm watching them in chronological order.
And you thought the first one, just go, DC. Go.
Well, hang on. No, hang on. I know what you're saying. You're saying the first one's the worst one. And or a bad one. And a lot of people have told me that. But remember, it's the first one I watched. So what do I know?
Look, let the man enjoy his Star Wars movies. Come on. Let live.
He's got a lot of bad opinions.
He'll have
today,
the metaverse.
So you can have all of today.
Okay. I'll wrap it up on a positive note. Actually, relevant for today's pod, which is my in-laws are visiting us.
Hello,
yay, in-laws. Which explains why this room is nursery, because the nursery was there in that room. And it's complicated. But the point I'm trying to make is we haven't seen them in ages, right? Because of COVID and other sort of things. We're seeing them for the first time for a long time. We're on Zoom calls or FaceTime pretty regularly. But this sounds stupid, but the difference between in-person hanging out and a Zoom call, which lasts longer, right? I think that's one of the possibilities of metaverse is you can actually have these interactions for more than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 20 minutes. But the difference between that and sitting down for dinner, right? Or just hang out over time is just kind of they sound, one sounds like it might be getting close to the other one, but really they're very, very far apart. Yeah. Right. And actually that's one of the things that makes me excited about some of the tech maybe that can come out from the metaverse or some of the tech that might be created to try to enable the metaverse, right? Again, to my earlier point, we're, the 100% is we're in person having dinner. The 10% version we have today is called let's go on a Zoom call, right? Yeah. How far can we push in that direction? Because they do live in a different state, so this is going to be, a brief thing, not something that they can sustain.
I think it's a great point, DZ. It's how
we've disappointed Ahmad again.
But the bar is pretty high.
The bar is really high.
What you're saying is that in-person interaction is just so fulfilling sometimes.
Yes.
That's
right.
To exceed that is
no, don't exceed. I don't think you
exceed. Think that DZ is making a slight suck up to his in-laws, saying I really enjoy you guys, and that's great, DZ.
100%.
I'm so happy.
We're gonna have 2 more YouTube pod subscribers.
Then we'll take anybody.
Ahmad, your final thoughts. You're a disbeliever. Tell us.
Oh man, because as you were talking, I was just thinking like, I feel like a core part of the in-person thing, and even though it's a little hard to describe, it's like the five senses are present, right? Like you can touch them, you can like obviously hear them, you know, you could taste the same food, right? You're at the same table, you're having the, you know, conversation about the same exact thing. Like,
Yep.
I just do not see a world where going from this into a 3D lens is the juice to squeeze ratio, right? Like the juice of going from 2D to 3D just purely on audio and video is worth the
That's a fair argument.
Yeah.
I'm gonna rewatch The Matrix tonight.
Oh yeah, it's a good movie. Go watch it.
Yeah.
It's the reality you want to live in. So yeah, might as well.
I don't want to live it. I'm just saying.
How do you know he's not already in it?
Yeah,
Ahmad?
how do
you
I
know?
know?
How do you know? How can you be so sure?
Yeah.
Okay, guys.
Hey,
lot
this
of
was
fun.
fun.
This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should do this more often where we debate and then come to no
I don't-
consensus.
Conclusion.
I don't like being the bear, by the way. I like being the bull. I don't like being
That's
the bear.
right. You guys have flip flopped. You know,
Yeah,
it was-
you
last
usually
time was
I'm the
the
bear.
I want to go back
yeah.
to a topic where I'm the bull. I don't like being the bear.
We'll do crypto. We'll do
Yeah, let's
NFTs.
do NFTs.
Yeah,
I want
it's
an NFT
burdensome,
breakdown.
isn't it? It's burdensome, isn't it?
It is.
Like,
It is
yeah,
tough.
yeah.
It takes a lot out of me. I need to like go. I don't know. Breathe.
Yeah. Have a nap.
Sit
Okay,
in your
guys.
chair behind
Okay.
you.
Happy Friday.
All right. Happy Friday.
Friday.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.